And third, Granholm is not like her predecessors. She actually talks to industry. She actually seeks out conversations with industry. And so she knows if we just do a blanket ban, that wouldn't work. Their goal is to bring down fuel prices. But the US Gulf Coast is super saturated with crude. They export crude that meets the requirements of other markets, not necessarily our own. Whereas the Northeast, it's the opposite. Very little refining capacity. They have to import refined product from another country. So if you just do a blanket ban, you actually push prices down in Texas, but probably raise them in New York. And that is not what this administration is after. So they're trying to figure out how to make it work. I don't know what that's going to look like. But the point is they're willing to actually discuss this with you. You should take advantage of that. Because we all know what happens when an executive makes a decision without consultation. They always get it right every time. But this is coming. Because if we have a breakdown in Russian flows and that price goes up to 100 to 200, there is no way a president as populist as Biden is not going to take sharp action to keep the American market supersaturated and the rest of the world can hang. This needs to be done right. Which makes things even worse everywhere else. So same map, we're going to look at natural gas now instead of oil, so the red lines. The one that matters right now is Nord Stream. It's a subsea line that goes from Russia proper under the Baltic, terminating in northern Germany. Until the war started, this was Germany's #1 import source, responsible for almost a third of the natural gas that they use all by itself. At the moment, it's offline. The Russians were coy about it before, saying, oh, it's a compressor issue. Oh, there's been a coffee spill on the control panel. They literally spilled coffee on the control panel and took a photo of it, and that was the rationale for why the line was off. I mean, Russian propaganda is not what it used to be. Anyway, they've become much more naked with their explanations of late, and now it's just that until the sanctions are gone and Germany leaves NATO, this stays off. Okay. You guys are in electricity, you get it. Marginal suppliers, marginal demand, that's what sets the price. Like if you takes a gallon of gasoline to get to work and you only get 3/4 of a gallon, you'll pay anything you can for that last quarter, but it's not like it's just that last quarter that gets expensive, then it's the whole gallon. Marginal supplier, marginal demand. The Germans have lost their baseline supplier, and they're attempting to replace it with 9 different marginal suppliers. And so prices have exploded, and they're going to stay up. Even worse, they're still getting some natural gas from Russia. Pipes that go through the war zones are now the reliable supplier. Oh my God! So we're looking at the Germans losing even more, which means that natural gas prices and electricity prices in Germany are now at a point where there is not a single German economic entity that is any longer economically viable. Germany's already in recession. If you like VW, if you like Beamers, this is your last chance to get one. This is the end of German manufacturing within 12 months. That assumes that every molecule or electron they're trying to import from all those new marginal suppliers still makes it. It won't. This is now the best case scenario for the Germans. The Russians have said you have to choose between being Western or being modern. And the Germans, at the moment, are choosing to be Western. Honestly, I didn't think it would be this clean cut of a choice for them. But then again, we're also not to winter yet. Okay, let's roll some grenades into the next panel. Solar intensity. The red are zones with today's technology where solar power makes sense economically and environmentally. If you move from the red into the orange, and intensity is not so good, still makes environmental sense, but economically it's probably a wash. By the time you move to green, solar intensity is so low that you will never generate enough electricity to pay down the carbon debt of building the panels in the first place. You put up panels in mass in green, you have increased your carbon footprint. You've done the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing. Every dot on the map is a population center of at least 1 million people. And if you go beyond those red lines, you're getting into areas where the seasonal extremities for solar are so much that it's only useful for 3 or 4 months of the year. for your 4 months of the year where you usually don't need it for heating or cooling. Okay? Same thing, wind. Red good, green bad. All right, now I'm going to combine these. I'm going to show you where it's good for both. So the blue, good for wind. The green, good for solar. The dark green, good for both. We have already eliminated where over 80% of the world's population lives. But we're not done. You don't put up solar panels over a cornfield because they need the sun there. You don't put up wind turbines above 10,000 feet because the air density is so low you can't turn the blades. And you don't put a lot of generation more than 1,000 miles from a population center because you'll lose so much from transmission loss. You factor all that out, this is all that's left. Now, does this mean that green tech is pointless? Not quite what I'm trying to say. I've got solar panels on my house, but I live at 7,500 feet in Colorado. There's nothing between me and the sun. It works great. Is Excel here today? Yeah, these guys are smug as They're in the wind zone of the Great Plains. They've got low population density. Whew, they're going to hit 100%. And they're not going to have to sweat all that much to do it. But everyone else, oh. Geography matters, folks, which means there's a tale of two environmental policies that are going on right now. And the story of how that is resolved is going to determine ESG. So on the one hand, you've got California, which when it comes to regulation, wow. And on the other hand, you've got Germany, which is basically California regulation, but with better type font. It's a little bit better organized, a little bit better planned out, but more or less the same thing. And what we're seeing in Germany now is an abject failure of the Energiewende that they have planned for the last 20 years. But the same policies in California, while they are generating hiccups and heartburn, we've had a few brownouts and evolution. And at least for now, it's kind of working. Can it be better? Yes, it can be better. It's still California, still regulation. I don't want to oversell this point. But we have basically the same policy set in two different economies, one of which where the transition haltingly is moving forward, and the other one where we are looking at deindustrialization because of it. Geography matters. And the difference is very simple. California is sunny, and the Germans don't know what sun is. Within the environmental community, this hasn't really sunk in yet. The idea that you have to tailor your ESG programs and your green tech and your transition programs to what actually happens where you live. There's this idea, especially with solar, that's been fetishized,